Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this roundtable on publishing community psychology. This is Terry Mannarini speaking, and I will be chairing this roundtable that brings together editors from 5 different community psychology journals, actually 6 including me. Lori Spezzali is here with us, editor of the Journal of Community and Applied Social Psychology. Elvira Cicognani, hopefully she will join us, is the editor-in-chief of the Italian journal Psicologia di Comunità. And then we have the videos from Joe Ferrari, editor of the Journal of Prevention and Intervention in the Community, Nicole Allen, of the American Journal of Community Psychology, and together Olia Glansman and Nicole Freund from the Global Journal of Community Psychology Practice. Just a few words to introduce this session. The purpose of this roundtable is to discuss some of the challenges that different community psychology journals are facing. And these challenges come both from the inside and the outside, basically. Among the internal challenges, I think we need to mention the peer review process, which is the most difficult yet also crucial step of the entire publication process. And it is important because it affects the quality of what we publish, and all journals struggle for finding available and appropriate reviewers. And it is even more difficult to find reviewers from a critical or decolonizing perspective. One more challenge that we face is about how to promote inclusion, diversity, and also innovation. That is, how to promote diverse knowledge and also socially significant research, and how to attract submissions that actually share these characteristics. And to me, this is an internal, external challenge because it depends partly on the journal policy, but also from the way of doing research in our scientific community. And finally, among the external challenges, I mean, the challenges posed by the global market of academic publishing, I think we should mention the big change brought about by the pay-to-publish model, the so-called gold open access route publication, which raises issues of quality, but also, and mainly, in my opinion, issues of equity and inclusion. And if we have time, I will say more on that after we've listened to all what the other participants have to say. So I suggest that we alternate a video and a live speech so that we can try to connect the different contributions. And hopefully we will leave time for questions and reactions from all the participants. So I would go with the first video, no matter which, one of the 3 videos we have collected. Is that okay? Can we get the video started?
Yes, just one moment. It's Glansman.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Nicole Friend, outgoing editor of the Global Journal of Community Psychology Practice. I started working with the journal in 2015 and passed the honor in March after 7 years with the journal. I'm immensely grateful for the experiences and people I've had the honor to encounter as editor, and I'm really excited about where the journal is going into the future. I currently work on program evaluation and community research at the Center for Applied Research and Evaluation, located in Wichita, Kansas, USA, in Wichita, Kansas University's Community Engagement Institute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olia Glansman. I am a faculty member of the psychology departments at DePaul University in Chicago, USA. And I'm the incoming editor of the Global Journal. It is a great honor for me to be taking on this role, and I'm looking forward to working with a dedicated team who work tirelessly to share and highlight the work in the area of practice.
The Global Journal is an open access journal dedicated to disseminating practice-related scholarship and experience. It is operated entirely by volunteers, from receiving submitted materials to finding reviewers to copy editing and formatting to programming and publication. And the technical online work is financially supported by the Society for Community Research and Action. Over the last 12 years, the Global Journal has published in multiple languages, shared content other than peer-reviewed articles like videos and radio programs, and evolved to emphasize the need to decolonize research and practice, as well as to be a platform for essential anti-racist work. In the last few years, we've actively sought and supported special issues that highlight the need to empower change.
As Nicole mentioned, we're in an open access platform, and we pride ourselves on supporting authors with valuable experience and research, but who may not otherwise have publishing support. On the flip side, the Global Journal publishes work and valuable insights that are accessible to everyone, especially those without access to academic libraries. To give you a quick glimpse of our readership, in 2021, the Global Journal drew approximately 74,300 page views and over 44,700 users globally. At the same time, we have cultivated 1,873 followers of Facebook and increased subscription by 7%.
As rewarding as this work is, it is not without challenges. Among them are working around the systemically colonized peer review system and legitimizing decolonized ways of knowing beyond traditional academic expertise. The work we publish is valuable and contributes to positive change in communities. The peer review system emphasizes white, Eurocentric, hierarchical judgments of legitimacy, and we work very hard not to be limited or knocked down by this pre-established system. We ask ourselves regularly how much knowledge and important information is lost every day simply because it does not conform to academic rigor, and how can we counter that loss in meaningful, accessible ways? Breaking down a historic system designed to be oppressive is difficult, but it's not impossible as long as we have co-conspirators to help, consult, guide, and carry through the changes needed.
As a result, we're working to recruit reviewers who share this position and who are dedicated to dismantling such systems. At the same time, we recognize that everyone is overstretched, and it is difficult to find the time to spend on thorough critical review. This has only been exacerbated by the global pandemic and many local and international conflicts, which put extra burden on the practitioners already immersed in their communities, working to bring about positive change to those who have been historically marginalized or oppressed.
As part of our process, we created a rubric to try and make reviews less onerous and to ensure that the work submitted for publication, regardless of format, addresses the issues of racism and inequality, in addition to how practitioners can fully benefit from the author or creator's experience and research. Of course, rubrics and intentions are not action. It is only with the commitment of dedicated volunteers that true impact is possible.
If this inspires you to want to be involved or to help address these challenges, reach out to me at editor@9ICCP.org.
We would love to thank Terry and the conference organizers for the opportunity to share the journal with you today. We hope to connect and possibly collaborate with you soon, and hope that you have a great remainder to your conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to our colleagues for this presentation. We've seen an inclusive form of open access journal and very committed journal open to diversity and trying to overcome the colonized system of peer review, as they said. I would turn the floor to Loris. Loris, if you want to comment on what our colleagues said, or just go on with your speech.
Yeah, I would just go on, just make a couple of points, but only few minutes, so maybe it's more interesting if some people have some points. So, but first of all, I would really like to thank you and you and Caterina for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to have the possibility, which is not so common, to exchange also ideas on how to make community psychology relevant. The journal that I edit is has a broad aim, actually. It's about community and applied social psychology, intended as different but also connected aspect. The main point is that the research should be done at the naturalistic level. So this is an important point of the journal, so that you should, in general, have naturalistic samples and really present research on the field. This is quite obvious for community psychology. Is not always obvious for applied psychology, because one can also consider applied in terms of topics. So we really have a lot of rejections, that's a rejection because people send articles with student samples to examine general theories. So this is more or less the focus of the journal, which is interested in a very, very broad array of topics, and something that we surely want to expand, because I think community psychology and applied psychology can go on basically all aspects of society. So ideally, a journal can be able to cover many of them, because all of them can be relevant depending on time and moment. Now, you surely mentioned some relevant challenges. I would focus on other two challenges, but of course I'm happy to discuss also the ones that you said about, for instance, reviewers, open access, or so on. A main problem, not problem, an interpretation that we gave in my journal to the relevance, to the importance of innovation, is that while I see that many authors and also past associate editors intended innovativity of articles as an additional aspect, they considered the main aspect the fact that the studies that they were going to present were situated like they were with naturalistic samples, and somehow a translation of what had been found in the field, which is how generally many people intend, as far as I know, community and applied psychology, basically in a sort of dependency on more relevant studies conducted with in more neutral environments. Actually, this is not our view. I'm speaking on the behalf of the editorial team. We discussed several times these aspects. To me, the distinction between neutral research with student sample and applied research that translates this is really an artificial distinction. I don't see this distinction. The point is that, of course, when you go in the lab, you have several, less disturbing factors, but that doesn't mean that the research is pure. Simply, it's easier in some way to conduct this research. The point is that controlling these aspects in naturalistic research is very difficult, because ideally you shouldn't just, I don't know, replicate, in my opinion, but you should try to conduct a real sound study in the field, which is much more difficult, because you must be really pay attention to the context and to all the challenges that you have in the field, which is very difficult because they are hardly controlled several times. Sometimes you cannot. You have to understand that the study will have some more problems. But here is the real challenge to provide innovativity. So to me, it shouldn't be simply a translation. They did it in the lab, we'll see that in the field. No, the real ability, skill of researchers is to provide innovativity while conducting research in the field. So it's like you do a new study in the field, simply you provide that in a real context, and also this way you can provide indication on how your study can really matters. Because to me, a simple study, let's say, for example, I'm working on contact personally. A contact study in the lab where you meet a couple of times a person, to me doesn't mean anything, because of course it's a completely different reality from the field. It's like I don't know, meeting a person in a shuttle in the space or on the earth. I mean, they are uncomparable. You cannot translate contact in the space with a person, with what you experience. But this is not a point that people understand easily. And to me, it's a key point for a couple of reasons. First, to demonstrate first that theory is not different from practice. Actually, they are not the, how can I say, two sides of a coin. To me, they are the same side of the coin. The ability is to provide the theory, but in a real situated context. And in terms of the journal, I know that, I mean, I'm not a fan of impact factor and so on, but of course, all of us has to check on these aspects. We know that we care about Q1, Q2, or so on. This focus on innovativity, at least until now, in my opinion, has helped the Journal of Community and applied to get high score, because we know citations often are for novel papers. So having this allows us to be in a high rank, because yeah, it's research in the field, but it provides innovation. So you can easily cite it if you find something, if you see that we find something new. Why it's important to be in Q1? This is not for the most basic aspect that people need to publish in a relevant journal. My idea is that this brings a cultural aspect into play, a very important cultural aspect. Generally, my perception is that community and applied journal are seen as less relevant journal by academics. They are a second option. They are, okay, it's an applied paper and so on. And in a way, objectively, somebody can argue this, because if you have a paper that is very relevant in Q1 and community journals are Q3, Q4, and so on, you can say in a way that that's true. But to the point that we are able to bring the journals to the same level of the other journal, also in terms of metrics, what we can demonstrate that community psychology is as relevant, to me even more, than more theoretical research. So this focus of innovation, to recap, to me is very relevant for several reasons. First, to provide real dignity to community and applied social psychology, also to bring, for the little thing that we can, a cultural change to say that no, there is not a priority in research for neutral research that to me doesn't exist. And also community and applied psychology is as good as. Why now it is in, generally is in lower ranking and so on. My opinion is simply because it's much more difficult to do such research in a correct methodological way. And so this reflects on the scientific quality, of course, which brings back to review and so on. Do I still have a couple of minutes? Okay, the other point that I wanted to discuss is the relevance of community psychology and applied psychology for people. I don't have an answer here, but I have a question actually. We all discuss about open access, which is relevant, so the our studies, our research can be shared with other people. But actually, this is true only for half. In my experience, yes, open access, and we'll discuss it, the Italian Association is relevant, but mostly, not only, but mostly at the level of the academic community. So I can see what others have published without problems of copyrights and so on. But this is not relevant to normal people. I mean, I think many of people here like me are in contact with institutions and politicians and so on. They would never have a check at an academic article. They wouldn't even understand an academic article. They want a couple of lines, very clear, very obvious, but that in a way can make a change for their different reasons. And to me, they are our targets because, yeah, we are academics, but why should you study community psychology if you are not interested in having some impact at the level of community? And surprisingly, I've seen many people, I would say 80%, because I discussed with several authors, that very honestly, very plainly, they say, no, actually, we have to publish articles. That's our job. Others have the job to translate this level of the community. Where's this role? Is there somebody paid to translate our results at the level of the community? Or we do that? Or for sure, operators and so on will not do that. So my point is that in some way, we should be able to not only provide our research widely to other research, we should provide that to the community. Really, now we can do that at the individual level, of course, because we all have our networks, contact, and so on. But in terms of a journal, how can be done? We did a very small attempt, so it's obvious. Surely it will not change the world, but it's just an initial step. And these occasions are good to me to, if somebody is interested, to discuss how to do that properly. Now, we introduced the community statement in the community applied social psychology, which is not a simple abstract in dissemination terms. So we ask on a voluntary basis, because I don't want to force anybody, we ask on a voluntary basis to translate the article into something that can be useful at the level of the community. Useful means that we don't present simply arrows and so on, because they wouldn't understand that. They should provide real indications on how a politician, an operator can apply this. Maybe it's like making your research very obvious, because when we go to the field, some finding can be very obvious, but still it's something very obvious that operators and politicians can use. Why? Because they can say, I look at academic research, so they're fine with this. Often they just want to say that, and they're not very interested in fact. But on our side, we did our little bit to translate our findings. It's a problem because anyway, many authors, I would say here too, that provide this community statement don't really understand this. So they simply provide an abstract in figure of research, which is not helpful really to a normal person. But we are not going to do this into a reviewed file, because it would complicate things so much. From all of this, what I see, and this I'm quite critical, is that many people simply don't care about whether their findings will be translated at the level of the community, which to me is a problem if you publish in a community and applied journal. So here too is something that can bring a change, something that, I don't know, maybe a scientific association can consider, and also a scientific association like the Italian Association, the European Association, the Community Association. So my proposal, I don't know, of course, I'm not in this association still, unfortunately, is that should we discuss how, not our personal research, but research that is published from the discipline can be translated? Is there some networks that we can use from association or so on to really make a change? Because of course, it's important what we do at the individual level for us, and maybe a little bit for the community. But the point is that at least in my city of my university, they don't care much about community psychology, honestly. So if as a discipline, we are able to systematically bring results from community journals to the community, then of course it will become more relevant, opening a lot of possibilities. But it's not so straightforward. So there should be, in my opinion, a real discussion on how to do that. Not at the individual level. We know how to do that at the individual level. We go to people, we discuss, and we try to make our point. This is quite easy. The point is how to make this at the level of the discipline, starting from journals. Because we publish paper on journal, they are a reference point for others, not because they read them, but because they are legitimate to provide research. And this way, starting from that, we can understand how globally we can bring academic knowledge to people that should really use it, because we are not physicians, we are community psychologists, applied psychologists. So I think it's really now our duties to do that. So that these were my points. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Loris. You've raised a number of really important issues, and I basically agree with you, and especially on this effort that we all should do as editors and as researchers to bring our research to the community. And I think that the attempt you are doing at your journal is quite interesting, and I mean it is a first step to on the one hand, to stimulate our colleagues to emphasize the applied part of the research and emphasize that it is important that if they publish in this type of journal, they are aware of what the research is useful for or for whom. And on the other hand, this is a way to make our research more understandable or usable by community. And this is also why open access is important, because if we make what we publish available to everyone freely without paying, of course, this is a way to disseminate what we do. Okay, but I think we can move forward with the next video, and Elvira Cicognani texted me she cannot join us, so maybe we can listen to the 2 videos left and then have some more time for discussion.
Hi, so the next video is Ferrari, right?
Okay.
Buongiorno e buonasera a tutti d'Italia. Sono Giuseppe Ferrari, diacono di cattolica diacono e un maestro de professor di DePaul University Chicago. That's about all the Italian I can offer you today. I'm sorry, I don't speak good Italian, but hopefully you understood that. Again, I'm Deacon Joe. I'm glad to be with you virtually. I know I'm on a short timeline here. I want to give you a little background and then answer as best I can some of these questions. Since 1995, I have been the editor of what some call one of the leading journals in community psychology, the Journal of Prevention and Intervention in the Community. The journal originally began in 1982, and it was actually called Prevention in the Human Services. But its reputation really went down, so much so that it was no longer abstracted, no abstract service. The APA, Psych Infos, were not abstracted. They were republishing previously printed papers. So in 1994-95, and I was a visiting faculty member, a term faculty member, I wasn't even tenure track. I was approached and asked, would I edit this journal, which I never thought I would do all these years. And I said, sure, but I want to change the name. We're going to call it the Journal of Prevention and Intervention in the Community. We will keep each issue as themed, which means do not just send us articles. It does not work that way. There's a guest editor, and the guest editor, like for example, here's an issue. Aha. As you can see, each issue has a guest editor. These are the current issues that are coming out, and they pull together all the papers. Every issue is themed and with a title like that, and every issue is empirical. All the papers are empirical. And so it's a nice way of organizing all of that. But again, it is peer reviewed because the guest editor or editors pull together the reviewers. It's now published by Taylor and Francis. Everything okay? Can you hear me? It is now published by Taylor and Francis out of England, 4 issues a year. And because it's themed, because there's, don't call them special issues, because all the issues are special to the guest editors. Every issue has a focus. It's a little different than American Journal of Community Psychology, AJCP, or different than the Journal of Community Psych. Those publish, now those are our 2 standards. Some people consider JPEC to be number 3. So I hope that gives you a little background. 4 issues a year. We are all set for 2022. I think I'm holding up number 4 of 2020 of this year, volume 50. So it's already done. 2023 is just about done. So we're collecting for 2024. And that's sometimes people feel that's too far away, 2 years, but usually 2 years. It gets published online. There is no fee for the journal. Oh, and now it is not only abstracted in APA, I brought it up to the point where it's now abstracted in Medline and what's the other one? PubMed. And those are considered the 2 high standards of if you're abstracted in that, that means your journal is really good. So it's very good. People often ask about the impact factor. It doesn't work like that because every issue is themed by different authors. I think Taylor and Francis is trying to move that way with this journal, but it is peer reviewed and there's no cost. And yeah, so I hope that gives you some background. It's surprising to me that people still don't know about this journal that since '95, I've been editor. It is, if you're a member of SCRA, you get a discount, I think 70% off the subscription rate. So you might even want to get your library to subscribe. So it's a good journal. I think it's good. One of the questions I've been asked is, what are the challenges that I face as an editor in the process? Well, one of the challenges is exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that people don't often know that JPIC is available, that it's a themed issue. I don't understand why every library of community psych doesn't subscribe to it. It should be out there. So one of the challenges since '95 I've been facing is giving the profile and promoting this scholarly journal. We don't have a lot of outlets. And this is one way for, I often say, if you're an associate professor and you want to become a full professor, talk to me, do an issue. That looks great. If you're a non-tenured faculty member and you want to impress the tenure committee, do an issue. If you've got, I've had people do this, if you've got a grant and you happen to have had lots of publications, we can take from your lab, your group, 1 issue all on that topic. You solicit. Now, often we say there's about 6 articles per issue, maybe 7, depends on how long. And I say, don't do all 7 with your name on it unless it's from your lab. I'm probably going to be working on an issue that's going to have all 7 from my students and I. So it really depends. But you work with the editor in terms of this. But one of the challenges is convincing people that they should publish in this and that it's a viable outlet. The other challenge is we often get a lot of people saying, I wonder, here's my paper, would it fit? Well, it doesn't work like that. Do not send us the paper. It's themed. Listen, okay. How can community psychology journals diversify the authorship and broaden the audience? I can't speak for other journals, but my editorial board when I took over was basically, if I may, old white men. And since then, they are now people of color, very international. I have people from Italy, from Peru. I'm trying to think of my editorial boards changed over the years. I think I kept one of the original people. Some of them died off over time, but almost all, many women, many people internationally. So I think one way to diversify in community psych is diversify your editorial board. Get people from different groups. Why not? Just remain true to the fact that we are a science and that you want, and that's why every article in my paper, in my journal, is empirical. It must be an empirical based. It wasn't when I took over, and I want everything to be outlets. So diversify the authorship, broaden it. Again, if like I'm saying, if you're an associate professor and you want to get full professor, contact people in the field, scholars, well-known people. Say, I invite you to give a paper. Now, the faculty member might not be able to do, but they might have one of their students and they would do that. Now, when you need a reference for going up for full professor, that person will remember that you had invited them, right? So it's all political. It's all the contacts, it's all the connections. And so that's another advantage to do that. And what do I think about pay to publish model? Well, that's an interesting question because, let me dig. I have about, if I may, about 400 scholarly publications, okay? And I would say early in my career, when I went up for full professor, I think at that time, I don't remember, I know tenure was 80, but for full professor, let's say 200. I had a handful of, and this was before open access journals, there was a particular journal in social psychology that published, but it was peer reviewed. You shared the cost. It was very low. I think you paid $25 for each publication page, but I had gotten things rejected from that. Well, that was scandalous. That was something, oh my God, oh no. Now I think it's very interesting. And that was back in 2006. Now people publishing that. So I think it's interesting. I think we need to be consistent. If you're going to say, don't publish, then everybody should not publish. If you say some faculty, oh no, you shouldn't, you look at this crappy stuff here, and others, it's okay, then that's brutal. That's not good. That's inconsistent, you know, that's unfair. And so how do I feel about it? I'm not a fan of it, but when you've got 400 publications, and I don't know the number anymore, and only 10, maybe 12 are paid, that's okay. I can tell you why. I had students as first author, and this person needed to get to graduate school. So I wanted an undergrad to be a first. I wanted to cite this paper because it was the psychometrics on a scale. So it was just a small little thing. So there were reasons why I published in that particular, those journals, because again, I wanted it to do them. But out of 400, if, you know, 385 are non-paid, that's okay. So I think, you know, you need to weigh it. I would not want, I'm sorry, all of these messages are coming in, dinging. I would not want someone to come up for tenure and only have paid journals. That concerns me. I can give you a story about that now that I think of it. Back in the 90s, I was at another school and I was a visiting one-year person. And there was a guy who came up and all he had was 6 or 8 publications for tenure that were in paid journals. I'm not going to mention the journal, but if you know psychology back then too, you would say that's, you know, 1-page articles, 2-page articles because they paid. But we really liked the guy and he was a great teacher, okay? So the department kept quiet about that, and the dean didn't know. He was in history. He didn't know that this was a paid journal. Looked at the number, the volume, how many volumes, and it was 135 or something like that. And so he thought that, oh, this has been around a long time. It must be very good. It's okay. All right, the guy got tenure on that. All right, you know that's a story. So I'm not a fan of those. And I think I'm running out of my time. How does this affect my journal? This journal, paid to publish? Well, it's a free journal. You don't pay for your publications. I don't know how it doesn't affect. I get paid as the editor regardless. So yeah, being a journal editor for what, 28 years, whatever that might be, has really been a great joy. I've been able to give back to the field, meet so many different people, help people get tenure, help people get promoted. That's the part I really like. Helping to bring people together, you know, mentoring people in that way. I find that's really, junior faculty who were scared to do things. I say, no, well, get this done, you know. So all of that, I work on first come, first serve. So if you were to contact me and say, I want to do an issue, and, you know, you think it's going to be 2024, it might be 2025, might be 2026, if other people get ahead of you. I can't. I had once, somebody took 7 years to get me the issue. Well, I couldn't hold things up for 7 years. The person was a procrastinator. I wasn't going to reinforce that. So I hope that answers your questions. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'm at another conference with my students. I had thought this was on a different day and things got moved around, which happens. I'm losing my voice from teaching. So I think silencio here, staceto, as we would say, whatever, I'll keep quiet at this point, basta, and that's it. Live long and prosper. I hope you do well. Sta bene e in gamba. As my nonna would say, sta bene e in gamba. Allora, ciao.
Okay, this was Joe Ferrari, and he offered his point of view on the issues we are discussing. It was very nice to listen to him. And I think we should move forward to the third video because we're running out of time. So if we can have the video from Nicole Allen. Get started.
I'm sorry, just a moment.
The third, do you have the third video from Nicole Allen? She sent it yesterday, actually, yesterday night. But I have this one, and if I can have the permission to share my screen, I can show you.
I'm
If
sorry,
you don't have it, I mean.
We don't have the third video.
Okay, can I share my screen, and because I have that, it's the only video I have.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. You can share your screen. You have a button called share screen.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So just a minute. I'll try to do that. Okay. Okay. Here we go.
Good morning. I wish I could be with all of Italy. My name is Nicole Allen, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Community Psychology. AJCP was founded in 1973 to be an outlet for community-based action and applied research. It's headed for its 50th anniversary, and I hope many of you will contribute. I view the publication process at its best as a way to archive our field's work and to encourage a conversation between ideas and theories and empirical work that spans geographic place as well as time and disciplinary boundaries. We're really fortunate that we have authors that come from around the world and from many allied disciplines, including public health, education, and social work. This metaphor of publication as an extended conversation has been an important one during my editorial term, because we're always motivated to expand who is contributing to that conversation. I began this role in 2018, and throughout my term, our editorial office and team has focused on and continued efforts to advance diversity and inclusion in the editorial process and in our journal publications. As we know, the editorial and publication process plays a key gatekeeping role regarding what constitutes knowledge and what constitute legitimate modes of inquiry. As editors, we have a critical role to play in disrupting that gatekeeping pattern, especially as it reifies some ways of knowing and devalues others. To counter this tendency in the publication process, we've taken many steps. Briefly, I want to share a few of the ways we've approached this persistent challenge. To begin, we've thought about representation in the publication process. One of the very first things that I did was to expand the editorial team to include associate editors. Most associate editors, pictured here, as soon as we prepare to move to a new editorial management system, we will ask our board and our reviewers to provide more information about their social identities. While not mandatory, this should give us an even better understanding of whose voices and perspectives are present and whose are still absent. Relatedly, we're incorporating new keywords so that they better capture the full range of scholarship being done in our field. This extends our communication of what relevant topics and expertise are, a list that should continually evolve. We have worked to increase our reviewer base and have added hundreds of reviewers. Having a wide variety of reviewers is essential to ensure adequate review of papers on a wide variety of topics and with a wide variety of methods. This requires intensive searching for scholars who are not yet in our reviewer pool and whose expertise is not yet well represented. It is essential that this is a broad base so that we avoid overworking particular scholars, especially our BIPOC colleagues, and colleagues studying often marginalized groups, including, for example, LGBTQ and trans individuals and communities. Importantly, we also try to disrupt aspects of the editorial process in which exclusionary practices may show up. While author and reviewer guidance are also important, we find that often this guidance is not read by authors or reviewers. So we focused on the editorial process as the area in which we have the most control. Thinking about this process, beginning with submission, we invest in authors and topics and methods that are underrepresented in the field. We balance efficiency in the editorial process with investment in the development of manuscripts through careful review and thoughtful action letters from editors. The need for efficiency is real, and simultaneously, we want to take the time to strengthen papers where that investment promises to extend and challenge our knowledge base. We also carefully examine reviews, not only for their content and the quality of that content, but also for language and tone and reviewer commentary that could be marginalizing. This might result in light editing that doesn't change the nature of the review, but addresses and removes unnecessary language. For example, I once received a review in which the reviewer declared my co-authors and I were whining. My view is that this kind of commentary is irrelevant and often rooted in sexism, racism, heterosexism, and other forms of oppression. This is not acceptable in the review process and can discourage and also dismiss authors. Fortunately, I find it very rare we have to make any such edits. That's a credit to our phenomenal reviewers and to the people in our field. But sometimes, rarely, those kinds of micro edits are necessary. As much as possible, we supplement reviews through action letters. And we take time with these, especially when reviews fail to offer the depth that would really advance the quality of an author's submission. Reviews should always offer feedback, even with rejection, and it is our goal that the review process strengthens future submissions, even if to other journals. We are also building a set of editorial guidelines that address broadly shared guidance to align our values with our editorial decision-making, including attention to the sample, overall message of a paper, how communities are described, how social challenges are defined, with attention to interpretation, discussion, and limitations, and also with attention to the language used in the paper. In the final process, our editorial assistant reviews each manuscript with great care to catch issues that may be marginalizing to our readership and future author submissions. For example, if sex and gender are used interchangeably, and this was not addressed in the review or the editorial process, we clarify the conceptualization and the measurement of gender before the paper moves to online first publication. Before I close, I also want to note the many formats that are invited for AJCP, including the first-person account. These were put in place by Jack Teaves, and the first-person account is one of my favorite formats and one that I'm always plugging whenever I present about the journal. This format still requires papers to contribute to our knowledge base, but also allow for this contribution to come through in a more narrative and experiential form, rather than the typical empirical article format. And you can find this in our author guidelines at the AJCP site. So these are some of the steps and processes we have in place and are still developing. We have no illusions that we have overcome the challenges of the publication process or that we're engaged in a perfected process. I know Brian Christens is currently with you all in Italy, so please feel free to ask him about the journal if you see him. I'm trying not to be too envious. I'm sorry I can't be a resource in person, but I'm always happy to talk, to set up a Zoom call, to consult or have an exchange via email. My email is above, along with our two fabulous editorial assistants, Shada and Allison. Definitely follow us on Twitter if you're not doing so already. This QR code will take you to the Wiley site where the journal is described. Please, please, please check out our current call for a special issue through the virtual special issue format to celebrate 50 years of AJCP. Thank you all so much. I look forward to a future time where I can hear and exchange ideas with all of you.
So, okay, I hope you were able to listen to what Nicole said. It seems there was some issues with the sound or with the audio. Anyway, if I may, I would like to just say a few words on the open access issue, and then I leave the floor to the participants for questions and comments. I just want to say that, you know, this open access issue, Loris was saying, it is just an academic issue. People, of course, are not interested and not aware of what open access is, but it is an issue, I believe, for us as academics and as community psychologists, because, I mean, the main problem I see in this pay-to-publish model, and I refer to those journals that are full open access, meaning that you can publish there only if you pay. You know, this is not the model of, for example, Taylor and Francis or Wiley Loris, because you are the hybrid model. So if you wanted open access, you pay, otherwise you don't, that's fine. But I refer to those journals where you have to pay if you want to publish. And I think this is a problem because it brings discrimination in our scientific communities. It widens the gap between those who can afford to pay, who have the resources to pay for publish, and those who don't have these resources. And I think this is a new divide. It's a divide between, again, the global north and the global south, and within each country, within, you know, between the rich and poor research groups or the rich and poor universities. And so I think this model, which is really changing the publishing market, makes the field uneven for us, for scholars, for academics, for anyone who is engaged in publishing research. And this is actually the opposite of democratizing science and disseminating knowledge, which is the claim of the open access movement. So this is a contradiction I think we should all be aware of, especially as community psychology who want to promote inclusion and democracy and social justice. This is what is especially important to me. Okay, so this is all I want to say about this issue. And we have 10 minutes if there are comments, questions, and reactions from participants. We have time for this. Okay, I see, just a moment. I see, no, I don't see. Someone, I saw a raised hand, but I'm not seeing it anymore. Anna Maria, did you raise your hand? Yes, okay, please.
I'm glad to continue at the point that you have raised, because there is also in the language, open is exchange for free. But indeed, open, especially gold open access, means a lot of money. So that introduces also an economicistic view of the knowledge production. Of course, there are journals who have costs for producing that, but also there is a sort of market of impact factor, no? And this not only influence the opportunity of a publication for those who are not, for example, already in a phases of a career to get funds and to and sometimes they have a brilliant idea and should receive the opportunity to publish independent on financial resources. And I may say that even though I was in my life always able to win a European project and so to have funds for publication, but I share the view of Terry, because I think that this new market of publication also has changed and influenced a lot, a sort of colonization of mentality, especially driven by the obsession of impact factor that do not necessarily correspond to the quality. Also because I've studied all the literature and the genesis of the impact factor and so on, and this was not the original idea. But coming to another point very quickly that has been arising by Loris Vezzale, I, on the contrary, fully agree with this idea and strategy to improve more involvement and let's say the destination target should really be the community rather than and the institution working for societal problem and trying to adopt policy, for example. And I would just a suggestion in case you may consider to involve more actively them and to orient the author to take into account this eventually policy of the journal that has been introduced by Loris Vezzale, involving, demanding the author to produce a sort of, you already mentioned, but as an option, no? But this option to provide a sort of a translation of their, for the community, as a journalist would have, for example, capacity to do, but this, if you engage also community in reading this, as the referee evaluated from the academic perspective, I think that there can be an opportunity for an internal dialogue between referee and people in charge for community. Of course, they should have some role, no? I don't think just citizens, but people who have responsibility, for example, in the different thematic area, health, I don't know, migration, environment, to take care of. So that means that finally, what our work, it is not only for our own career, which is I consider the worst motivation for us, because it's very self-centered, and especially for social science, but in principle for all science, even for medicine, any science, architecture, because at the end, the knowledge is not for career. The knowledge, career should be a consequence of your capacity to produce knowledge, not the goal. Okay.
Thank you, Anna Maria, for your contribution, your very interesting comments. I personally agree with you. Loris, please.
Yeah, I don't know how to virtually raise my hand, so I will do it in the classic way, let's say. I thank Anna Maria for the suggestion. We should really discuss about it. The point to me is understanding how to make broad networks, because once you are in a network, in a way, you are more not forced, but invited to contribute, adopt, and similar. And I think it would be very important, the collaboration between journals and associations. I mean, journals, we know publishers do it also for economic reasons, but they are driven by researchers. And so the point is the aim. Let's say that if, for example, in a very simple way, the aim is to help community, then this is something that can unite associations and journals. And to me, this is a way to start bringing a real community. Then, of course, each part has its own duties, like the association has something, the journal has others. But to me, the answer is always in the collaboration, because if we consider something so complex like a community impact with real practitioners, is unlikely to be on an individual basis. Individual can also mean individual journal, or individual association can also be an individual institution. So on my side, if somebody of association or so on is interested in collaborating with the journal for starting to create a network, or at least only discussing about it, I'm extremely open and happy about it. So you just tell me if somebody wants to discuss about how to start creating a community impact on the side of community, also bringing together journals and associations, and which maybe a novelty also in the academic world. Just a comment on Terry. This is a very important issue, open access. Honestly, I don't know if in the other countries it's perceived as to us that is very relevant for careers and so on, in a way that we mean them, meaning that I don't really know. Now, of course, I said it's important for the academic open access, is important in general. I know I also seen recently a research that people, even not reading academic research, but simply knowing that paper are open access, are more trusting science. And this is something. So in general, of course, open access should be promoted. My intervention was that we should do it also in a way that people understand about the fees and the discrimination that can appear for because somebody has money and somebody not, because this is the point. I'm not a structured opinion, so I'm just going random. Actually, this not only depends on people, it depends on people that evaluate these people. The point is in the evaluation. I mean, why should I publish in a classic open access journal if I if I have the possibility to publish in another paper relevant to the social community, like the paper we are discussing here, because of course this open access paper, only open access paper, always almost always are general journals. They are not of a specific discipline, meaning a few things that if you publish in them, you are not addressing a specific community, meaning that your article, your study is likely to be less relevant for your own community, meaning that you are only publishing for career purposes. So that's the point. But you publish for career purposes. And in history, we know, I don't know how can I translate, please Terry, if you know how, fatta la legge, trovate l'inganno. The point is that we had to publish more and people find a way to publish more paying papers. But if you go in a, how do you say concorso?
Competition.
In a selection, job selection, okay? And you evaluate scientific articles and you don't evaluate at the same level papers published on open access journal or others, that's a way to start teaching people. And this is where we are going, because in a way we will have to find some criteria that can distinguish. And if somebody says, why should you should value less such articles? Well, because generally, at least in my experience, they are obviously, clearly in of a lower quality. But apart from quality, the point is the editorial position, the editor of the journal. The point is that they are general journal, unspecialized journal, and so less relevant to this discipline you are applying for. So you have all the ground for evaluating this article on that dimension less. So that's my opinion. What is the consequence of going on in this way? That will arrive at a point that these articles are clearly less relevant for the discipline because they are not read by people from the discipline. And this will lead gradually to a less relevance of our articles, at least Italian articles, because it's an Italian way in the general academic world. Because if somehow you artificially separate yourself from the discipline, that means in our case, Journal of Social Psychology, then of course you will be read less and you will be less relevant. And in the long term, this is already something that we are seeing. In terms of discrimination, because somebody has money and somebody not, I think the future of open access is not on people paying articles. Now, I also see in my journal, almost half of the papers are in open access, but a very minimal percentage is of people that are paying for open access. They are basically all on transformational agreements, which is good. That means that institutions pay for them. And the more this is spreading, the more there are less ethical justifications for people to publish in all open access. Because if the reason is, I want to publish in open access because it's nice that my paper is seen by everybody. First, that's not true, because you can also pay open access in normal journal. Second, the more and more we publish in not only open access journal, and institutions pay for us. And of course, publishers are very interested in this because they basically are making already almost half of the article in open access. And I really hope that this is going to be wider, and this will be, because this will allow to reduce the discrimination that we mentioned between people that have money to pay and people that don't have.
Thank you, Loris. We will continue this discussion next week in a different conference. Thank you.
A lot of discussion.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments, reactions from people? I don't know if there's anyone in the Aula Magna or from the people online. And if not, I think we we have come to the end of this session. So thank you everybody for contributing and staying with us and participating. So goodbye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.